So just before I start this review, I'd like to say that this review is not scripted at all and it's entirely off the top of my head while the movie is still fresh in my head, so if it goes horribly wrong, you know why. So, Edge of Tomorrow was pretty dang amazing, which I was not expecting at all. See, I went into this film thinking it'd be absolute shit because the advertising for it, like the trailers and all that, they just didn't make the movie look that impressive. Like visually, it looked impressive. So from a visual standpoint, the movie looked awesome. But just like the story of it and the kind of inspiration that it derived from video games made it look really mediocre, which was disappointing to me because it is a heavy video game inspired film. So that really disappointed me in the trailers. But going into this film thinking that was going to be terrible, I came out thinking it was amazing, and one of the best sci-fi films I have seen in years. It was awesome. So basically the story to it is that Tom Cruise is this guy who sort of advertises propaganda for joining this war against aliens which have come in and attacked Earth like 5 years in the past, and they've basically inhabited all of France and Belgium and all the countries sort of surrounding that. And so a bunch of countries who have not been invaded yet have sort of gathered together to fight these alien forces and completely eradicate them, as you would. And yeah, Tom Cruise is basically this guy who advertises the propaganda for the war, so tries to get people to sign up, basically. And he also advertises these giant big mech suits, which are used for war. And they're awesome, they're in the movie a lot, and they just make everything more badass, basically. But basically, he's hired to go to the front lines when the soldiers are going to first attack the aliens, and sort of film and show the world what or how good at fighting these soldiers really are. And then, as you would expect, he's terrified and doesn't want to go, and then one thing leads to another, and he ends up on the front lines in one of the mech suits. And he's terrible at fighting, but as he goes on, he dies and is killed by one of these aliens. I'll not spoil the reason why, but he ends up waking up again just the day before he went into battle. And from there on out, the story goes that basically he'll go into battle, get killed, and then sort of be reset to the day before the battle, and then have to go all the way back in again. And slowly he gets further and further along to defeating these aliens. And that was something I was expecting to be absolute shit in the movie. I was expecting that to get so boring because he would just be repeating the same day over and over and over again. But it was done so well and so concisely that you barely even noticed it was the same day every time. It was just so awesome. There was a lot of comedic elements to that as well, so he'd make it really far in and then die and have to go all the way back to the beginning, and that was almost part of the comedic element of the film. And there were a lot of sort of jokes surrounding that he had to go back, and it added some really needed comedy to the film, which really sort of alleviated the darker and more depressing tones of the film, which I really liked. It made it seem way more interesting every single time. So yeah, that was amazing. That whole sort of time travel almost element to the film, that was awesome. Now for the actors. So Tom Cruise did an amazing job in this film because I was really expecting him to just sort of be the same sort of Tom Cruise that you've seen in every single movie that he's ever done, practically, that's sci-fi. So like Oblivion and all that. But this movie surprised me in that he was nothing like what he's been like in his other films, since he's more of a coward in this film, and you see his growth to become more of a prominent character and more of a strong character and more strong-willed throughout the film. And that growth is awesome because you get to see his character actually go through these steps and train to get stronger, and I really like that. So Tom Cruise did an awesome job in this film. That was awesome. And then we've also got Emily Blunt in this film, who did an amazing job as well. She was a complete badass and had one of the strongest female leads I have seen in a film for years. It was awesome. So yeah, she basically has this giant ass sword, and that sword is awesome. It looks a bit like I think it's the Breaker Blade from Final Fantasy something or other. I don't know. It looked like that a bit, so that was awesome. And on the topic of video games, this film was extremely video game inspired, and you could really tell by the action sequences that it was video game inspired, which I liked. I thought that that was awesome, and the action sequences in general were amazing, like had amazing cinematography, and were some of the best action sequences I have seen in a science fiction film or an action film for the last few years. So that was really, really cool. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, some people say that the film is extremely like Halo. So if you like Halo, you'll probably end up liking this. I wouldn't know personally because I've never played Halo, but that's what people are saying, so yeah. The film also had a lot of elements taken from some other amazing sci-fi films like Groundhog Day and Minority Report, so if you like either of those two films, then you'll probably end up liking this, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, so the film itself really did surprise me because I was expecting it to be terrible, but the one sort of thing that was going for it for me was that it was directed by Doug Liman, who was the director of The Bourne Identity, which is probably my favorite spy movie of all time. The only thing that was worrying me about him directing it was that The Bourne Identity had shaky cam quite a lot in the action sequences, and that worked for The Bourne Identity, but I didn't feel that would work for this film, and luckily that didn't transition over to this film since there was no shaky cam, which was pretty amazing. So yeah, the final thing I'm going to talk about is the design of the aliens in the film, and they looked so awesome. It was amazing. They looked like crackheads, basically. They had very sort of erratic movements, and the way they moved, you could see like their tentacles kind of swirling in and around each other the whole time, and they kind of sort of erratically move from place to place, and it looked really, really awesome. So yeah, if you like mech suits, good action films and good sci-fi films, and video games, then you owe it to yourself to see this film because it was pretty amazing. So yeah.